What are you doing?
I'm burying you.
I'm alive! I'm alive!
You're waking the neighbors!
No!
Shut up!
No!
Sometimes there are decades when nothing happens, and there are days when decades happens. And we are living through those times right now. So it's tough to really know which side you should wind up on. And people are, now you're splitting the right. You know, you have sort of like the Ben Shapiro wing, and then you have the Tucker wing, and now Tucker and Ben Shapiro are fighting. You have like the splitting of the right on this issue. And we're going to get into it. We're going to get into it here. Michael McFaul, who's a member of Congress, who's been really, you know, he's Mr. National Security, is saying that this was just a massive, massive intelligence failure to the tune of September 11th. September 11th was a massive intelligence failure. Now, that leads to a lot of other questions, but here, have a listen.
We heard from the administration. There seems to have been a failure of intelligence as well. We're not quite sure how we missed it. We're not quite sure how Israel missed it. We know that Egypt had warned the Israelis 3 days prior that an event like this could happen. We know that this had been planned perhaps as long as a year ago. The other concern.
So Egypt was warning Israel about this. Israel didn't take action. What's going on? I mean, I'm starting to get 9/11 vibes here, right? Where there were all these flashing red light warnings and nobody did anything. And it leads you to say, like, why? Why were these intelligence failures? Like, cui bono, right? Like, why? Like, these intelligence failures, why? How? Really, really important to ask yourself these questions in moments like this. And also extremely important to understand the forces at play, the global forces at play. Because you're starting to see U.S. aircraft carriers be moved into the region. The Secretary of Defense is in Israel right now. Like, you know, is this a trap to get us caught up again in another Middle Eastern war? Which is, of course, the way that you destroy empires. The destruction of every great empire, Greece, Rome, it always comes from entanglements in foreign wars. And that is the one thing that I am, like, steadfast on. Now, there is a clip going around where Ben Shapiro is going after Tucker Carlson going after Ben Shapiro. I want you to see it, because what's starting to happen is now our movement is starting to break in half, right? Well, that's pretty convenient for people that want to control the country. Pretty convenient, because there was a moment just seconds ago, actually, before we had our little family break here, everyone was united against Ukraine funding. Like, there was this incredible moment where we were all kind of like, what the hell are these people doing? Sue for peace. You lost. You got to move on. Like everyone was on there was this coalition, very fragile coalition, uniting. That was like, we're done with these globalist wars. It's going to bankrupt us. It's done. These are empire killers. And then, here we go. Back at it again. And they're going to try and drag American troops in. Mark my words. That's next. They're going to try and drag American troops in. They want Americans in there. Now, Americans have been killed. And this is absolutely horrific. But is it an act of war? Well, I'll leave that for the philosophers to determine. Does that mean American boots on the ground? I mean, in horrible tragedies, Americans get killed abroad. Does that mean all-out war? More importantly, what happens on our soil next? Our border's been open. There are thousands of people on the terrorist watch list that have poured into our country. They've been released. What happens next here? Keep your head on a swivel today. Please. Keep your head on a swivel. Is this how they get... I'm just asking questions here. We're just trying to make up for lost time. Are they trying to get Joe Biden... Is this how they get Joe Biden out of office? This is an interesting theory. Do they get Joe Biden out of office by just... Like, the attack happens on... Imagine the political catastrophe that is this open border policy. And then an attack happens. It's tied directly to the open border. There's no surviving it. Joe Biden has to drop out. Joe Biden must drop out. There is no other way. There is no other way. That is the end. Not any of the stuff with Hunter, not any of the laptop stuff. That stuff is hideous. He should have already been impeached for that. But dude, if something happens here and it's because of his open border, which of course it will be, manifestly so, well then there's no political escape hatch there. You're just done. You probably resign At that point, you just resign, right? Ladies and gentlemen, we are living in dangerous times. We are living in dangerous times. So we got Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson at war, and then you have Vivek Ramaswamy and Sean Hannity at war. I want to show you both sides of this, and I want to tell you where I stand on this, obviously, as somebody who has daughters and sons, somebody who has little children here. Guys, like, I'm anti-sending our children to foreign wars. Period. End line, end, done, line in the sand. Okay? Shouldn't have gone to Iraq, shouldn't have gone to Afghanistan, and I'm going to be intellectually disciplined on that point. I am in favor of George Washington's departure from office speech, his farewell address, saying the most important job of this country is going to be no foreign entanglement in wars and no spilling of our blood for foreign nations. No, is the empire killer, and he was damn right 250 years ago when he said those words. And so, ladies and gentlemen, now you're starting to see our movement fracture. Ben Shapiro is on one side, Tucker's on another side. Tucker's very much like let's care about our homeland here. Tucker made the point that politicians spend all this time talking about Ukraine and all this time talking about Israel and no time talking about the war that is being fought on our soil, which is the poisoning of Americans, 100,000 a year at least, die of fentanyl that's created in China, shipped over the open border in Mexico to slaughter us. Where's that focus? Where's the unified party focus on that war? Isn't that important too? Here's Tucker's point and then Ben's point.
And again, I want to add my voice to that because I'm a human being. But
oh, sure you do. You sound very outraged.
The outrage among Republican presidential candidates was so much more intense. One of them took to a bullhorn and started yelling about it. I get it. But no one would think to do that about the 100,000 American young people murdered every year.
Because who are you yelling at? Who are you yelling at? First of all, people are on bullhorns yelling about drug overdoses and the open border all the time. All the time. What is he even talking about? What he's attempting to do is minimize what happened in Israel. He's not attempting to maximize what happened in the United States. He's attempting to minimize, as though America can't walk and chew gum, morally speaking, at the same time, which is absurd. And those two things are nothing alike. I'm sorry, that is not alike. It is not alike for drug smugglers to smuggle drugs over the border, which someone then takes and shoves into their arm and then they die of an overdose. That is not the same thing. I promise you, it is not the same thing as a terrorist breaking into your home and murdering your children in their beds in front of you and dragging your wife off to be raped in Gaza. That is not the same thing. Pretending that it is immoral. It's a moral blight. It's idiocy. It's just moral stupidity at the highest level. Of course we should care about what happens with fentanyl. Of course we should care about, we should close our border. Have I been unclear about this? Of course America should have closed borders when it comes to this sort of stuff. I'm on the same side as Tucker on that. I just don't understand why he's not on my side when it comes to Hamas has to be wiped off the face of the earth.
So tensions are high. I think there's a nuance there in that argument, by the way, between Tucker and Ben. And I think they're missing each other here on these arguments. And I think that Tucker has a worldview, and as somebody who's, I worked for Tucker's online publication, I know his worldview quite well. I've written with Tucker. I'm friends with, I'm able to communicate and share ideas with Tucker. I manifestly understand his worldview. And of course I understand that Ben also has this deep and abiding, it is a personal thing, right? When Israel is attacked, this is a personal thing for Ben. So it's where Tucker comes from is this Pax Americana isolationist wing of the Republican Party in stating, why are we so obsessed with global matters when everything is decaying here at home? And nobody seems to be interested in the decay here at home, and everyone seems to be obsessed with Ukraine's border and not ours. And that is a rightful gripe. That is a true and honest gripe. And that doesn't supersede or take away from the fact that barbarians went across a border and then murdered. That happens to us every single day. Can we agree that happens to America every single day? How many illegal criminal migrants have slaughtered people in the street? And just here in Florida, just up the road here in Florida, an illegal criminal migrant welcomed into this country with a red carpet by Joe Biden, slaughtered a woman and her child, ran a stoplight, drunk, blackout drunk, killed a baby, killed an American baby. Well, is that not terrorism? Is that not also terrorizing? What if you're the father of that baby? I believe the mother was in the car. I'm not sure if the mother was killed or not, but the child was. Well, isn't that terrorism? Isn't that the dead baby? Via the violation of our border? And where's the outrage over that, right? Like, where's the money? Where's the political will to spend American money and to militarize our border? Which, of course, that's an act of war, right? Last week, we showed you a Venezuelan flag that was planted on American soil as a bunch of Venezuelans poured into our country. Why would you do that? You're not a migrant in that scenario. You are an invader. You are a conqueror. You are you are declaring conquest of this land. You're not leaving anything. You're not fleeing anything. But the people who have created those policies have their own evil designs. And they also have their own cheerleaders in corporate press. Sean Hannity is one of them. Sean Hannity had this humiliating exchange with Vivek Ramaswamy last night, where he said that Vivek isn't qualified to be president because he hasn't done enough time in working for the federal government or for defense contractors. Whew, baby! What you're hearing is the crumbling of the old conservative guard here. Sean Hannity being one of the last pillars trying to hold it up. Watch.
Well, Sean, I think that it depends on what your objectives with this interview are. I voted Libertarian in my first election. I voted Republican in 2020. You're right. I'm not a partisan hack. I come in from the outside.
Forgive you for your screw-up.
I'm an independent-minded patriot who speaks the truth.
It sounds to me like you just want to jump from the private sector yourself, where you made a lot of money. By the way, I applaud capitalism. I applaud successful people.
Sean, I applaud you for being so transparent about your objectives.
I actually think that people work in the defense of our country, in the defense industry, are playing a vital role for the cause of freedom. So I don't really call it a corrupting influence or suggest that somehow that's a corrupting influence. I actually like the experience that goes along with working for defense contractors. But I've got to listen.
One of the things I loved about that interview with Tucker, was we were actually able to have a thoughtful conversation and go deep into issues rather than this kind of political gotcha.
The point is this: you go on these interviews. Yeah, I have nothing but nice things to say. But here's your problem:
people should watch it.
You go on these shows, people quote your exact words, and you deny your own words. And I'm saying if you're going to be a presidential candidate and you're going to spend, I'm going to give you your exact words, either own it.
Sean, you have been sitting here for years talking about the fake news media.
But you played this all the time.
I'm enjoying this. You have been laughing about the fake news media how many times for the last several years, and now you're buying the mainstream media narrative when you know how corrupt it is.
I am following you. I am quoting your exact words.
Are a problem.
Did I not quote your exact words?
About Azerbaijan and Armenia.
Did I not quote your exact words? Did I quote your exact words?
And Armenia, absolutely.
Thank you.
About Azerbaijan, yes,
I've got time to go.
About a different topic, Azerbaijan, where people should actually get their own information rather than filter through centralized media.
I think it's asinine to think somebody that worked in the defense industry should not be qualified to be president. I think people that never held public office, like you, they're not qualified to be president.
Oh, hey, people who've never worked for the defense industry are not qualified to be president. Let me show you here. These are the number of people that I would like from the defense contractor industry to be president. Here's a full list. Here is a number of people, Sean, that I would like who have worked in government their entire lives to be president. I have a handy list kept for me at all times. And it goes on and on and on. You want to talk about the current battle for the Republican Party? You want to know why Steve Scalise dropped out of the speaker's race? Because they've lost. These people have lost. We've won.